Hey friends, today we're going to talk about something that is not often discussed, which is the early stage of building a startup before reaching product market fit. You know the classic advice, talk to your users or customers, right? But what if you don't even have users or customers to talk to, or they don't even want to talk to you? Don't take your users' time for granted and think that everyone is willing to give feedback to help you grow your startup. Most startup advice out there assumes that you already have lots of users, a team, dedicated capital, and revenues. But the truth is, 90% of us are far from that stage. Many first-time founders are just a single dude wanting to change the world from their laptop in their tiny room, me included. It's even more challenging for first-time founders without any fancy credentials like being an ex-Google employee or have sold their previous startup. If you're new to the channel, my name is Philip and I'm myself a technical solo founder building my own startup, SewaYou, a location-based language exchange app. So, why is this early phase so difficult? 90% of startups died within their first year, and many startups die without even having a single paid customer or fundraise their first round. When you're starting out, one of the biggest challenges is that your product will always be compared to other more established products from bigger players. Every time you mention your product, your potential users will ask, why would I use your product when I can use XYZ? Or what's the difference between your product and ABC? Check the App Store and you'll see thousands of apps that look the same as yours, and many of them are just zombie apps that are no longer maintained. The bottom list of the App Store is basically the graveyard of most dead app startups. Let's face it, most products are just a few tweaks away from another similar product. Take project management tool for example, like Asana, Monday.com, Wrike, Trello, Notion, Coda. They are basically the same when you take a look at the bigger picture. So you can go on explaining to your potential users the tiny difference between your product and your competitors, but most users don't care. They likely go with the more advanced, stable, and bigger players, and the ones with the more users for social apps, because the cost of switching is not worth it, and whether your startup will still be around in 5 years might be their primary concern. For every SaaS startup, there's an Excel spreadsheet that does the same thing. For any community app, there will be Facebook groups or subreddits or just a filter away on LinkedIn. Building a dating app in 2023? Well, good luck, my friend. And the list goes on. So during this early phase, every working hour should be dedicated toward iterating and improving the product to get the early sign of product market fit. The key here is to prioritize speed over efficiency. For example, I used to refactor a lot my code base and update the code base now and then just to catch up with the latest updates for the open source libraries, just, to be on the edge. Sometimes updating a package will break my app because there are unexpected breaking change that the library maintainers didn't anticipate or fully test it. That happened to me many times, and when it happens to crucial pages or screens like the sign up or authentication page, man, it hurts. I just ended up spinning around and wasting time fixing those weird and temporary bugs and just wait for the next patch update. Then the said packages keep adding new updates, and at the end of the day, my startup didn't move by an inch by playing this endless catch-up game. It was just my technical side's ego that took over. So don't be like me, wasting time optimizing or refactoring your backend code that nobody will see or care anyway. Another time waster is always searching for the perfect tool. I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to this too. I've been always looking for the best project management tool with the best experience and features, the best notes, writing apps, and so on. While it brings me joy to be able to work on the best tool, I also realized that the time spent on that is just working for the sake of working, and optimizing internal processes just for the sake of feeling organized or clean, basically just a form of procrastination. Startup is about being scrappy and moving quickly to take the market by storm. Ain't no time to try out yet another useless app. In this early stage of a startup, your main goal is to build a great product, not a great and efficient process around it. The only internal processes that you should be optimizing is the things that can help you iterate faster on the product and release more often. Other than that, it's just useless works that make you feel good but don't move your startup forward. The main goal is to validate your biggest and riskiest hypotheses, the ones that can either break or make your product, and prove your product's core value propositions. The classic advice, do things that don't scale, holds true here. Be hands-on when recruiting your first users. Find where your users are and be there. Also be creative when you're recruiting your first users. So I once wrote a bunch of automatic script that sends messages to users on really old language exchange websites to attract them on my app. Something I haven't tried yet that I should do is to buy a potential user a coffee at Starbucks in exchange for them to try out my app and watch them use it. Also, building a product is great, but distributing it is another set of challenges. When it comes to distribution channel, give yourself a time limit to try out different channels and double down on what works and just ignore the rest. Prioritize channels with quick return on investment. Things like SEO might not yield you fast enough results because when you start out, it takes weeks or sometimes even months just to get your pages indexed by Google bot. Nowadays, the internet are just flooded by AI-generated blog articles and nobody reads blogs anymore, right? Unless it's a well-written article that can directly earn your readers' trust, then the conversion rate is pretty low. There's a place for SEO in the startup game, but if you haven't validated yet whether the market needs your product, then investing and focusing on SEO might not be worth it. Before moving on, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification for more startups and business lessons I've learned while building mine. Another thing that makes the early stage of startup feels like a living hell is the lack of enough data to make data-informed product decisions. In the early stage, you won't have enough usage data to make data-informed decisions on which features to build. Most features don't make sense unless you have enough usage, like filtering, customized recommendations, infinite scrolling, over-optimizing performance, and so on. As a technical founder myself, I tend to add complex features that only power users can benefit from, but they only represent a tiny percentage of my user base. Most users won't stick around long enough to try out your app until they become power users. Identify these type of features early on and save them for later when your product is more established. What you should do early on is to find features that can benefit the majority of your users, especially new users. For example, at Twitter, 1/3 of the engineering time and resources are dedicated to new users' onboarding experience, and they even treat the first few steps on the onboarding experience as a separated app from the main product. That's how important the first few minutes of your app is. In the early days of your product, rely on your intuition and market insight to guide your feature development, as most users don't know exactly what they want. People got cars when they were just asking for a faster horse, and the world didn't need a TikTok app until they cannot live without it now. One thing that may make your life a little bit easier during this phase is just to embrace the challenges of this difficult phase and not to be afraid. During this phase, you likely feel like you're constantly pushing a ball uphill that is ready to fall anytime. None of the stars are aligned with you and everything goes wrong. There's close to zero pull from the market and you constantly need to push your product to the market. Back in the early days of my own startup SewaYou, if I miss a day promoting the app somewhere online or just asking a friend to try out the app, then there will be zero download on that day. But the 0 to 1 stage of making something out of thin air is an exciting feeling. Some founders even decided to give up their CEO title when their startup become too big later. Because building products that didn't exist before and operating an established startup requires two different skill sets and character traits. And then they go and start another startup. Founders are crazy people, right? Despite the challenges, this stage offers lots of learning opportunities. That's when I build most of my startup muscle. I get to know the importance of sleep and how good it feels just to clear my head with some mundane activity without having to think about my startup. So much on your plate, and in a high pressure environment, you'll develop stamina and resilience to uncertainty. As Tony Robbins once said, the quality of your life is directly related to how much uncertainty you can comfortably handle. Alright, here's another beast that you need to face during this early phase of building your startup, which is fundraising for the first time. Having successfully fundraised for my own startup without a single employee or co-founder and seeing early stage startup around me, here's what it takes to successfully fundraise. At this stage, you need either or a combination of the following. Founder credentials, so it tremendously helps to have exited co-founders or team members working previously at big names companies. Or being an exited founder, but hey, you won't watch this video if you already sold your previous startup, right? Team synergy, so clearly show a product founder's fit, meaning you or your team are the best person to build your specific product with unfair advantages like competitive edge insights. Having traction, so showing your users' growth evolution or early sign of product market fits, and having paid customers or at least heavy users or die-hard fans. Compelling story, so tell a strong personal story that links directly to your product and why the world needs it. Storytelling like a TED Talk definitely helps. In my case, I was a polyglot with first-hand experience learning foreign languages, and understanding the difficulties learners face when trying to find nearby language exchange partners. It's a combination of all the points I just mentioned that help me fundraise. Remember, there's no one-size-fits-all startup roadmap, but there are typical phases that every startup goes through. Identify where you're at in your journey and just focus on doing what makes sense during that phase. Only do things that brings you to the next phase. I highly recommend the book, The Startup J-Curve, The 6 Steps to Entrepreneurial Success to help you navigate your startup's growth. And if you want to learn more about how I fundraise for my startup, then check this video here. If you enjoyed this video, like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell notification for more startup lessons I've learned while building mine. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Bye.